I'm Dalton Delan. I'm a columnist for the Berkshire Eagle. And this is Eagle Reels, where we take you beyond the news. Our very special guest today, Geoffrey C. author of The American Revolution. Welcome, Jeff.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Thank you. Now, you've written the book as well as the script with Ken Burns for The American Revolution. Which comes first, book, script, together?
The script comes first, and I accumulate lots of items on the cutting room floor, and they get into the book. So I'm satisfied at both places.
Wonderful. And I know readers and viewers will be too. Now, we have some similarity of background. You and I have talked about that in the past. You were editor of American Heritage. At that time, you thought that colonial era individuals, quote, all appeared unlovable, unquote. You were the first to admit in the book that your perspective changed. The book features innumerable fascinating characters. They seem to jump off the page. Tell us about that change.
Well, it was a legitimate change. I'd always thought this period was sort of too remote for me to get a hold of, and that those people in their wigs and buckled shoes seemed very, very remote. Once I got into this, I couldn't get enough of it. I mean, these people are, except for the wigs and the buckled shoes, remarkably like us.
Now, but you're appearing on our show without a tricorn hat, so I'm.
I know, but it's hanging just out of frame. So
good. That makes me feel better. As often with your work and Ken's work, the synchronicity of the book and the series are extraordinary. Of course, we know that we've got the 250th anniversary coming up, but you guys started this, 10 years ago. In the preface to the book, Ken quotes loyalist Anna Roll, quote, "What charms one half of the people generally distresses the rest." It feels like today. What about for you, Jeff?
No, it does. And, in my own, one of the things you do when you get into this is you go back to see how your ancestors did. And in my own family, I have a Continental Army general with a wonderful name of Epaphroditus Champion, and a officer in the Tory forces who fled to Canada at the end of the war because he could not bear the thought of living in this revolutionary republic. And I think that's true. One of the many surprised me, sort of revelations, I guess, was what a good case you could make for being a Tory, for being a loyalist. You simply were conservative. Your view was this place worked fine under its old system. Why mess around? And besides, if you're an Anglican, God told you to obey your king, and so it was blasphemous not to. And families were torn apart by it. It was in every way a civil war as well as an international one.
So Jeff, we might have been doing this for the BBC right now with you in London, right?
Yeah, exactly. I wish we were.
The book describes, as advocates of resistance, more than 100 Massachusetts towns and districts, not just Boston. Berkshire Eagle is based, in mid-Massachusetts. Thoughts about that and the centricity of Massachusetts?
One after the other before Lexington and Concord, towns simply decided they were not going to obey judges and tax collectors and other royal officials throughout Massachusetts. It was, and they did it sometimes by quiet boycott, and sometimes they did it by hundreds of farmers with scythes and spears and guns, if they had them, turning up to make sure that the courts did not function. And it was that's when the British really knew they were in trouble.
Hmm. You write that Virginian George Washington was not fond of New Englanders. Did that ever change?
I don't know if it ever entirely changed, but that that distinction between Southerners and New Englanders was a very serious one. One of our characters, a grunt, marching to all the way to Yorktown, so he's been through the entire war, is very annoyed to find that his men are marching. He's a New Englander marching alongside these savages from the southern colonies. And you know, if I could tell one quick story, which is in the book but not in the film. Artemus Ward, who was the head of the Massachusetts militia during the siege of Boston, was replaced by the Virginian George Washington. And while they were very civil to each other, I found an item in Ward's diary many years later. He was living in Philadelphia. He has the gout. He's a very large man. And he's thrilled because it's Washington's birthday and he will not have to be required to take part in the festivities again. So it never was entirely healed, I think.
Well, you bring up a character that caught my interest. Artemus Ward, before he was replaced, he points up, and you do very strongly in the book and the series, the role of Native Americans, which I think has been largely overlooked in the mythology, the frozen in amber mythology of the American Revolution. Ward, I believe you have in the book, had 17 Native Americans who served with him, Mohican, Housatonic, Wappinger, and they were from the praying town of Stockbridge. Those were towns established by missionaries for Indians who embraced Christianity. I'm in Stockbridge often. I've not heard people tell me about this. Could you tell us a little bit about
Yeah,
that?
it was once almost entirely belonged to them. And slowly, whites overcame through the law kept taking away the land that they had. And really, in desperation, they decided they hadn't done very well under the British, who had promised them all sorts of things but never actually defended them. So they would try to join our team. And they suffered terrible casualties. All kinds of promises were made to them about how things would be after the war, none of which were honored. And they ended up leaving that area, like so many Indians who were displaced. It's a very
Along,
story.
yes, yes, it's an American story, isn't it? Um, Alongside your colorful characters that you bring to life, you also have more than 500 images and maps. Did you ever write with any illustrations in mind?
No, maybe here and there, maybe I would say there's a pretty good painting of this battle no, but I tell you, I've done a lot of picture books and I did all those years at American Heritage. There's nothing I love more than writing about pictures. And the pictures in this book um, give you a sense, among other things, of how our vision of the past is sort of frozen graphically, including great painters like Trumbull and so on, whose paintings, if you look at them, they were done, some are contemporaneous, some are a little afterwards. They make political points. They are not accurate depictions, and I tried to show when I could. The best example is probably Benedict Arnold. There's a wonderful painting of Trumbull's painting of the surrender of the British at Saratoga. It was a huge victory, and the British lost an entire army. one of the people most responsible for that was Benedict Arnold, who led the last great battle, or at least took an enormous role in the last great battle. He is not in the painting. Everybody else who was there, including the cook, are included. He's nowhere to be seen. It's like those old Soviet pictures, if you remember, of all the Soviet leadership, and then from time to time somebody would disappear from the picture. And it's the same thing. Plus, the other thing is, in the book, we got to use lots and lots of those incredible 18th century maps, which are just works of art. And it's fun to write about them and how they got it wrong and how they got it right. I had a wonderful time writing about pictures. I don't think I've ever had more fun doing it.
Yes, absolutely. Now, on the darkness, okay, depicted as obviously there's a great promise, there's a great nation, but there are a lot of those battles and those maps. And one of the sections in the book, I noted the heading. It really got to me. Each step cost human blood.
Yeah.
In addition to the battles, you depict hunger, smallpox, typhus, the winter of 1779-80. I believe New York you had as 16 degrees below zero. The role of Mother Nature and also microbes in the entire course of the revolution.
You bet. First of all, it was a bloody civil war. And that, if you were in grade school, you didn't learn that. In addition to all the bloodshed, there was this awful smallpox epidemic, which took thousands of people. There was a great controversy with George Washington over whether they should be inoculated. And he finally made the decision that they had to be. And probably, had he not done that, it's quite likely that he would not have won the war.
Well, I'm laughing. Maybe we need to have a conversation with RFK Jr., Jeff, after this. Okay. Thomas Paine, obviously towards the end of the book, Thomas Paine concludes our great title is Americans.
Yeah. And that's right. And that's what I believe. And one of the many things that, again, that was new to me was just how many different kinds of people ended up winning that war. And it included everybody. And you don't have to be woke and check boxes and all that. If you tell the story honestly, everybody was out there. They were involved. And, Germans, Irish, Spanish, Indians, Black people, both free and enslaved, farmers. It's a remarkable collection of people. And if you had asked somebody, could they? Well, Washington never stopped being astonished that his army had done so well in that war. It didn't seem possible that you could forge such a force and make it work.
Jeff, is one of the takeaways, you're obviously, a writer and you're laying out a remarkable history. But if you have in the back of your head something you want readers to take away, is something of that unum in e pluribus, is something of that commonality of Americans, something perhaps you feel is worth reminding us of?
Yeah, and related to that, let me just say one thing. A lot of people tell you that you should study history because it tells you what to do somehow. It doesn't tell you what to do. But for me, if you assume that people in the past, the founding fathers, were flawless, if they're marble statues, then they were not marble statues. They were flawed human beings, just the way we are flawed. And if the assumption that the understanding that flawed people can do great things, to me means that we could do great things. If they are saintly and we are not, it's hopeless for us, and it isn't. So for me, understanding the complications of history and of the human beings that made it is essential to understanding how things can be changed. Um, progress can be made.
That's a fantastic prescription. Thank you for that. Another quote that, of course, is my and many people's, favorite and telling is the 1787 Benjamin Franklin. Not 100% perhaps that he said it, but he was quoted as saying, calling us a republic if you can keep it. But how do you read that? Fact, challenge, warning.
It's all those things. It's all those things, and it's always true that we've got to work to keep it. Seems to me.
As we begin our dismount from our conversation, you've mentioned a couple of surprises. Any others we haven't covered? Surprises as you research. It is a deeply researched history. I learned so much. Any other things that you learned in working on the book?
Two things, general things. One of them is I did not understand how important the hunger for Indian lands had to do with the revolution. The British told people they could not travel across the Appalachians. They were at least as angry about that as they were about taxation without representation. And the other thing is that in some sense, the struggle in North America was a sideshow from the British point of view because the Caribbean was so much more valuable. They made huge amounts of money from sugar and other things grown by slaves who lived in beyond horrible conditions, and that's what they wanted to hold on to. And they wanted to hold us on too, but the two, they were the most important.
As I hear those things, and I think those who read the book, and I recommend it heartily, and as the series, I think these rewrite the mythology of the revolution we all learned to the degree we learn much of anything in school. And that to me is incredibly important. And thank you for doing that.
Thanks for
What is next up, Jeff, for you? With Ken or flying solo? Please share with us.
I'm not flying solo at the moment, but after 43 years, we're doing Lyndon Johnson, which is three shows, which is about as far from the revolution as you can get, but is fascinating. And he was trying to, whatever his flaws, to make Jefferson's promise about equality genuine.
I'm so glad to see that. When we worked on the Vietnam War, we always knew there was that other half of
Exactly.
LBJ that had to be told.
That's why he's such a fascinating character. He's the best and worst of people all the time.
Jeff Ward, a tremendous pleasure as always. Again, I recommend everyone read the book. You won't regret it. It's also a wonderful holiday present. It's a beautiful, remarkable tome, and the series as well looks incredibly promising. Jeff, more work from you. Can't wait to see the LBJ. Thank you for taking the time to join us today.
Oh, it was fun. Great to see you.
Viewers, if you are already a subscriber to the Berkshire Eagle, thank you. This is how we keep the flame of local journalism alive in America. And if you're not yet a subscriber, please consider becoming one. I'm Dalton Delan. I'll see you next time on Eagle Reels and in the pages of the Berkshire Eagle.